Mom is struggling living on her pension. You can work even a bit, should support her.
At the inheritance meeting after the death of her husband, Tom, the second son, spoke seriously to the eldest son and his wife. However, it seemed to have no impact on them.
What do you mean by support? Just because she only has her pension doesn't mean we can easily give her our money.
Exactly. Are you implying that Catherine has always been scheming to grab our money?
Suddenly, the eldest son and his wife looked at me with a bitter expression. It wasn't a kind look one would give to a parent.
Stop acting like a parasite. It's annoying.
That old woman living on her pension should stay out of everything except for ceremonies and just behave herself.
Hey, enough is enough.
Tom reprimanded them, but I just looked down, clenching my fists. Not only did they wish for my husband to be gone, but they also complained about the inheritance and even called me a parasite. I made mistakes in how I raised them. I can't take it anymore. Nevertheless, I spoke to the eldest son and his wife with utmost calmness. I understand what you're saying. Let's become estranged. My name is Catherine Johnson. I'm turning 65 this year. Currently, I live with my husband who has retired. My husband is kind and considerate, and we've supported each other for a long time. We were blessed with 2 sons, John and Tom. Currently, both of them are married. Lately, our house has been showing signs of age, so my husband and I were planning to renovate it. We thought that if we were going to renovate, it might be good to live with our eldest son, John, and his wife. So we contacted John. John, we've decided to renovate the house. How about living together with us after the renovation? When I said this over the phone, John was clearly reluctant.
I really can't think of living together. Emily would hate it too.
But if we're going to renovate, I want to prepare a room for you two as well.
Isn't that just convenient for you? If you have so much money to spare for renovation, just give us some. We'd gladly take that.
I could hear Emily, John's wife, saying over the phone, living together is seriously impossible. I see. Okay, forget about what I just said. The eldest son and his wife are always like this. For some reason, they always act superior and treat us coldly. After hanging up the phone, I relayed John's feelings to my husband. He looked a bit saddened, but spoke cheerfully.
It can't be helped. Let's renovate our home to be barrier-free so we can live comfortably, just the 2 of us in our old age.
Following that, our home was renovated as per our wishes, transforming into a barrier-free residence. A few months after the renovation was completed, we planned to have a meal with our eldest son and his wife, as well as our second son and his wife. Tom, our younger son, and his wife, Karen, were the first to arrive. Karen is a thoughtful person. She handed me a gift and immediately went to the kitchen to help.
Catherine, your cooking is as wonderful as ever.
Well, thank you. It's a great help with you assisting, Karen. As they were chatting, the eldest son and his wife arrived. As soon as they arrived, they firmly seated themselves on the sofa and demanded tea. Seeing me preparing the tea, Emily and John made irritated comments.
You really don't pay attention, do you?
Exactly. We are the guests here, aren't we? Hurry up.
As I silently set the tea in front of the 2 of them, Tom chastised John from the side.
John, can't you do at least that much by yourself?
You stay out of this.
I sighed at John's intimidating remarks. Tom and Karen have always been kind to us, but even to Tom, John always had a domineering attitude. However, the reason we invited the siblings this time was that we had an important matter to discuss. As the dinner began, John, who seemed displeased, started speaking while eating.
Hey, Dad, you called us here for some reason, right? Spit it out quickly.
Yes, well,
My husband glanced at me, and I gave a slight nod.
the truth is, I've been diagnosed with lung cancer.
Tom and Karen looked genuinely shocked, but the faces of John and Emily didn't change much.
Dad, what's the current situation with the cancer?
Tom asked in a trembling voice, and the husband responded quietly.
I'll be hospitalized starting next week, but it has already metastasized throughout my body. And I've been given only 6 months to live.
Oh no.
Karen covered her mouth, trying to hold back tears, and I bit my lip.
Well, Dad is getting old after all.
John remarked, as if it were about someone else. Emily said,
Well, you can't beat age, right? My uncle also passed away quickly from stomach cancer.
Their insensitive words made me angry, and I couldn't help but raise my voice. Would you two please stop?
Catherine, let's not go any further.
But my husband calmed me down and started speaking quietly to our children.
I want to ask you all to look after Catherine after I'm gone.
Of course, Dad. I'll take good care of Mom, so don't worry.
That's right. Please focus on taking care of yourself.
Tom and Karen spoke reassuringly. However, the elder son and his wife seemed busy with their phones, seemingly ignoring the father's words. After the meal, the gathering came to an end. Since John and Emily left swiftly, I went outside to see Tom and Karen off.
Mom, I know it's tough, but please stay strong.
We'll definitely help out too. So please let us know if you need anything.
Thank you, Tom, Karen. They had such a conversation and saw off Tom and Karen. Since my husband preferred palliative care over surgery and chemotherapy, he was admitted to a hospice the following week. I began visiting the hospice almost daily, with Tom and Karen assisting with transportation and nursing care. However, no matter how much I reached out, the eldest son and his wife never visited. And about 5 months after his admission, as my husband's condition worsened and thinking it might be his last moments, I strongly urged the eldest son and his wife to come. They showed up, seemingly displeased. However, John didn't even hold my husband's hand or speak to him. Instead, he looked at my emaciated husband with an expression that seemed almost repulsed.
I've shown my face, that's enough, right?
We have things to do, so we'll be leaving now.
The eldest son and his wife said so and left the patient room hurriedly in less than 10 minutes. Right after they left the room, I noticed that Emily had forgotten her jacket. I chased after them to return it. As I approached the corridor from the stairs, I spotted the eldest son and his wife slowly descending. They didn't notice me and were having a conversation.
Seems like Dad's really reaching the end.
Hey, what happens to the inheritance once your father's gone?
John grinned slyly in response to Emily's question.
Even though Dad was just an ordinary office worker, Mom and the others recently renovated the house and are living quite comfortably. Maybe they've been investing in stocks or something. We could probably expect a decent inheritance. Haha.
Yee. I'm so excited. I've been wanting to go on an overseas trip. And I want a designer bag too.
Yeah, we just need to wrap things up quickly now. Haha.
Hearing their conversation, I couldn't help but tear up. I couldn't bear to let my husband hear such a conversation. In the end, I couldn't confront the two of them and simply returned to the patient room. 2 weeks later, my husband passed away. I cried for a long time by my husband's side, but Tom and his wife Karen were there to comfort me. With their support, I managed to take on the role of the primary mourner and successfully oversee the funeral proceedings without any issues. After the funeral, when it was just family left, John spoke up, seemingly unable to wait any longer.
Hey, about Dad's inheritance.
What are you thinking? Bringing that up now. We just had the funeral today.
Tom quickly reprimanded him, but John glared back at Tom.
You, being the younger son, should just stay quiet.
I let out a sigh. We'll have a discussion about the inheritance next week. So, for today, please go home. Upon hearing those words, the eldest son and his wife smirked and promptly left. The following week, the cheerful eldest son and his wife and the solemn-faced younger son and his wife came to our house for the inheritance discussion. I made an announcement in front of both couples. First off, I should inform you that your father's inheritance amounts to $20,000.
What?
Upon hearing my statement, John looked as if he was caught off guard. I intend to split this according to the legal inheritance shares, half for me, and a quarter each for the two of you.
Wait a minute. Is there really only $20,000?
Despite my calm explanation, John persisted. I handed him a thick envelope. All the documents are here. Please review them. After scanning the documents, John and Emily's expressions turned noticeably sour.
Damn, Dad was really stingy.
Are we only getting $5,000? That's so little. If that's the case, we should get the house too.
In the face of the clearly discontented couple, Tom spoke with a voice filled with anger.
Mom is living in that house.
I don't care about that. It's probably because of those renovations that there's no money left.
Exactly. If the inheritance is this small, then hand over the house.
Facing the frustrated couple, I calmly spoke up. This house was painstakingly renovated by your father so that the two of us could live here during our old age. I cannot simply hand it over. As long as I'm alive, I'll take care of it.
What? Trying to profit all by yourself is unfair.
John, with a fury as if he was about to lunge at me, glared intensely.
Bro, stop it.
Tom restrained John. Your father worried about me until the very end. You might not understand, John. While looking at the agitated me, Tom began to speak softly.
Mom, we will renounce our inheritance. Please accept our share as well. It would give peace to Dad's soul.
Beside him, Karen nodded in agreement. Tom, you don't need to worry. I said that, but the eldest son and his wife interjected again.
If you guys don't want it, then hand that share over to us.
Exactly. We'll gladly take it.
There's no way that can happen. Mom's living on a pension, and it's tough. Those of us who are working should support her.
Tom fervently scolded the eldest son and his wife, but it didn't seem to faze them in the slightest.
Support, you say? Just because she only has her pension doesn't mean she can just hand over our money that easily.
Right? Or maybe, from the beginning, you intended to take our money, didn't you, Catherine?
Suddenly, the eldest son and his wife looked at me with expressions as if they'd bitten into something bitter. It was not a look one should give to their parent.
Stop being such parasites. It's a nuisance.
Old pensioners like you should just keep to yourselves and only get involved in weddings and funerals.
Hey, enough is enough.
Although Tom scolded them, I just hung my head and clenched my fists. Not only did they wish for my husband's absence, but they also complained about the inheritance, and to top it off, they called me a parasite. Where did I go wrong in raising them? The thought brought tears to my eyes. But I couldn't break down here. I held back my emotions and addressed John and the rest with utmost calm. I've heard what you have to say. Let's cut ties. The eldest son and his wife looked surprised for a moment, but their expressions quickly turned smug.
Really? That's more than we could have hoped for.
So we don't have to deal with the old lady anymore. Lucky.
As John and Emily quickly tried to leave, they made a snide remark to Tom and his wife.
That means you two have to take care of the old lady now.
Good luck taking care of the parasite.
As John and Emily stormed off, Tom and his wife rushed to my side.
Mom, are you okay? They're just too much.
Catherine, we're always here for you. Please don't be disheartened.
I, still looking down, raised my head and looked straight at the two of them. Tom, Karen, I have something to tell you. Several months later, while I was relaxing at home, John and Emily, accompanied by Tom, appeared. What's going on? I thought we had severed ties, hadn't we?
Hey, old lady, we've got something to discuss.
Yes. Let us in.
The eldest son and his wife shouted at the entrance with flushed faces. Then, from the side, Tom spoke apologetically.
I'm sorry, Mom. They asked about the house, and I just told them.
It's all right. For now, everyone come in. I let them into the house. As soon as they were led to the living room, the eldest son and his wife began to shout.
What do you mean you gave the house to him?
Exactly. What do you mean by overlooking us, the eldest son and his wife?
While watching the two of them, I spoke in a calm tone. I decided to hand over the house because Tom said he would maintain it along with the memories of his father.
Well, what's that supposed to mean?
John, taken aback, stared at me. Tom and Karen have been a great support to me. It's only natural. I smiled warmly at the somewhat apologetic-looking Tom and Karen.
Mom, thank you.
That's not what we want to know. You said you'd take over the house yourself, didn't you?
I glanced briefly at the eldest son's wife, who seemed about to froth at the mouth, and then explained, I thought I'd hand it over if you could respect the wishes of both your father and me. Besides, I've started receiving rental income.
What do you mean by that?
Sighing towards the astonished eldest son, I calmly spoke. Remember last year, when my father, your grandfather, passed away? Tom attended the funeral, but you said you were too far away and didn't attend, remember?
Well, about that.
Your grandfather was a landlord who owned several buildings and apartments. I've finally settled that inheritance and started receiving rental income. The eldest son and his wife looked as if they had been shot by a bolt from the blue.
We weren't informed about this.
I didn't tell you.
Hey, about the rental income. How much are you talking about?
Well, it's about $2 million a year, so it's easy to give a house to my lovely son and his wife. Then, the eldest son and his wife abruptly stood up.
Wait, hold on a second. If it's about the son and his wife, then we should also.
Why should I share my assets with someone who called me a parasite? You're the ones who told me to stay out of your lives, right?
Well, about that.
If you're going to call me a parasite, then please don't leech off of me. As I firmly stated, the eldest son and his wife seemed to be at a loss for words. I glared at the two of them and pointed to the entrance. Well, our conversation is over, isn't it? Please leave.
Wait, just a moment. Mom, please listen to me.
The eldest son approached me in a fluster and suddenly clung to my arm. I looked at him with cold eyes. I see no reason to be called Mom by you.
Please. You can give us a house or money too, right? We're in trouble.
The eldest son's wife pleaded loudly. I looked at the two of them and spoke. In trouble? What do you mean? The eldest son then started talking hesitantly.
We kind of spent recklessly thinking that Dad's inheritance would come in, and we got into a bit of debt.
I forcefully pulled away the eldest son's arm. Unbelievable. I never thought you would do something this stupid. You sowed the seeds of your own actions, so deal with it yourselves.
Mom.
That's just too much.
I addressed the frustrated expressions of the eldest son and his wife. From now on, I'll start transferring the assets to Tom through lifetime gifts. I won't give a single dollar to you, whom I've severed ties with. Don't ever bother me again. Tom stood up, raising the eldest son and his wife who had slumped down.
If you understand, then leave quickly. Don't come near Mom or us from now on.
Tom assured the two of them out like deflated balloons. As I was still catching my breath, Tom patted my back. Afterward, the eldest son and his wife apparently kept borrowing more money to pay off their debt, eventually leading to bankrupt. I heard that their apartment is in shambles, and they constantly argue with each other at night. For them, who couldn't even prioritize their family, there doesn't seem to be a promising future. As for me, I handed the house over to Tom and bought an assisted living apartment nearby. Tom and his wife often come to visit, and recently, a cute grandchild was born. Moving forward, I want to cherish each day while building a good relationship with my second son's family. That's my plan for the future.
I am Emily. My husband's name, whom I've been married to for 3 years, is Tom. We built our own home shortly after getting married. We lived together with Tom's mother. My mother-in-law was a single mother and raised Tom on her own. I initially disliked the idea of living with my strong-willed mother-in-law, but we decided to live together due to her dislike of living alone and Tom's strong wish to ease the burden on his mother, who raised him single-handedly. Living together was as terrible as I had imagined. Over time, my work hours became my only respite. It's my duty to shop and prepare dinner after work. My mother-in-law basically doesn't do any household chores.
I'm using the kitchen right now, so wait.
But I need to start preparing dinner soon.
I'll be done soon. Just wait.
All right, I understand.
Why, even though we live together, is there only one kitchen?
When I proposed a two-family house, you declined it.
Did I? Maybe I was being considerate back then. If we went with a two-family house, the cost would have been higher, right?
Maybe we should have installed a second kitchen after all.
I thought so too, but I held back for your sake. You should be grateful to my past self.
I see. I had assumed you declined the two-family house because you didn't want to be alone.
That's not the case. I would have preferred a two-family setup if possible.
Should we consider renovating now?
Fine, but I can't contribute financially.
If we decide on that, you'd have to contribute as well.
I'm retired now, have no intention to work, and I've spent most of my savings on Tom since I raised him as a single mother. So I can't afford it.
But we've been covering all the house loans and utility bills. If you want a two-family setup, we'd need some financial help.
I don't have the money. I've already spent a lot on Tom. He works at a good company now, so he should repay me more than I've spent on him.
Then we'll have to continue cooperating and getting along.
Why do I have to be directed by you? If you earned more, we could renovate as much as we want.
I'm not bossing you around, and I don't think my salary will increase any further. So don't expect too much from me.
Tom earns so well, but because he married someone with low income like you, he can't live a wealthy life.
What are you trying to say?
Sometimes I think it would have been better if Tom married someone better.
I see.
You're only able to live this life thanks to my son, whom I raised with care. Don't get ahead of yourself.
I do work as well, you know.
Your earnings are just a fraction of what they could be. You should be more grateful to my high-earning son.
I am grateful, but...
But what? You're living off the money my son earns, so don't complain.
That might be true, but I earn a decent amount myself.
Annoying, annoying, so annoying.
Huh, why are you so angry?
If you were a higher earner, I wouldn't have to put up with these frustrating days. It irritates me just thinking about it.
It's not very constructive to blame me for that now.
Why do I even have to live with you every day?
Tom is on a business trip. It can't be helped.
He's hardly been home in these past 3 years.
That's the nature of his job now.
He didn't go on business trips before you got married. Why did this change?
He changed jobs.
But it's the same line of work, isn't it? Does the compensation differ that much?
It seems to be a company with frequent trips.
I would have been better off living alone.
If you dislike living with me so much, why don't you live alone?
Will you pay for my living expenses if I do? If so, maybe I will.
Why don't you ask Tom?
Tom would surely want to live with me.
That might be the case. When he returns this weekend, I'll discuss it with him.
Tom doesn't come home on weekdays due to his business trips. Because of this, in the house we built, it's like living with just the two of us. My mother-in-law and me. Although I feel some dissatisfaction, I try my best to avoid conflicts. It seems my mother-in-law also dislikes living with me. We decided to discuss it on the day Tom returns. Because a conversation among the three of us might not be productive, I spoke to Tom first.
Your mother doesn't seem to like living with just me.
Why?
She doesn't like you being away on business trips.
Even if she says that, it's my job, you know.
She said she'd rather live alone than live with just me.
What? Maybe it's your fault for making her say that.
Why is it my fault?
If you got along well, she wouldn't say such things. You're probably giving her some attitude, right?
That's not true. I cook proper meals and do all the housework.
That's what you're supposed to do, right?
What's that supposed to mean?
My mom struggled to raise me. I just want her to have some comfort now.
That's why I'm doing everything I can for her.
Doing for her. Housework is your job, isn't it?
What's with that attitude?
Just get along better with my mom, will you?
I am doing my best. But if we're causing stress for each other, maybe it's better if she lives on her own.
That'd be a waste of money, wouldn't it?
Well, maybe we should have built a two-family house then.
We don't have the money for renovations now.
If only you would fix your spending habits.
Why is it being made out to be my fault?
Since you get an allowance for business trips, why don't you use it for living expenses instead of wasting it on gambling? Then we could afford renovations, right?
I don't want to do that. Gambling is my only pleasure during business trips.
So what are we, who are stressed out, supposed to do?
You just need to put in more effort to get along like a real mother and child.
It's not that easy to build a relationship like a real mother and child with an in-law, you know.
Talk after you've tried harder, LOL.
What's that supposed to mean?
I'll ask my mom to be a bit more patient.
Patient? It sounds like you're making it out as if only I'm in the wrong.
This is just too annoying. You have two jobs, to get along with my mom and to handle all the housework. I'm counting on you while I'm away.
It seems Tom spoke with his mother, and she decided to give up on living alone. However, after this discussion, our situation deteriorated even further. One evening, we were having dinner, just the two of us as usual.
I don't want this because it tastes bad.
Again, you've been quite picky lately. What's going on?
Tom told me.
Told you what?
To try to get along better with you.
I see.
He said I can speak my mind and don't need to hold back.
Is that so?
He suggested that if I lived like you were my real daughter, I might not feel stressed. I've been eating things I didn't like just to endure, but I've decided to stop doing that.
So that's what it was about.
From that day on, the mother-in-law became more and more self-centered each day. My stress accumulated even more than before. Even when I consulted with Tom, he just told me I wasn't trying hard enough and didn't help at all. Finally, I reached my breaking point.
That reminds me. Did you clean the bathroom yesterday?
Yes, I did.
There was still dirt left.
This comment from the mother-in-law after a bath pushed my anger to its peak.
I'm honestly fed up with being nitpicked every single day.
Huh. Tom told me to treat you like my real daughter. That's why I'm doing this.
Real daughter? I don't recall becoming someone like your daughter.
What's with that tone?
Aren't you confusing me with a servant?
Well, come to think of it, you are pretty much like a servant.
I am not your servant.
Then why don't you leave?
Shouldn't that be my line?
Oh.
Despite not contributing to the household expenses, you want to kick me out?
Of course. Tom is the head of this household.
I am Tom's wife, you know.
What are you saying? I am Tom's mother. Do you think the wife has a higher position?
It's not about positions or anything.
Then what are you trying to say? Do you think Tom would choose you?
I believe Tom will choose you since he cares about you so much.
Well, of course.
Are you really okay with me leaving?
What are you worried about? It's obviously going to be fine if you leave. In fact, it'll be a relief, haha.
I see. I thought you might struggle financially, but I guess you'll be fine.
Why are you concerned about that? It's none of your business.
Understood.
Tom earns $70,000 a year. So we're more than okay, huh? Don't underestimate us.
I'm not underestimating. I'm just concerned.
There's no reason for you to be concerned about us. Really. Stop belittling us. Just get a divorce already.
All right. It seems there's no need to discuss it with Tom. I'll pack my things and leave right away.
Haha. Finally. The nuisance will be gone.
A few days later, I left without saying a word to Tom. Consulting Tom, who dearly loves his mother, would only frame me as the villain. As if to prove that, I received no messages from Tom, likely having returned from a business trip. I then decided on divorce and arranged to meet Tom alone.
I told you so many times to get along with my mom, and yet you're fighting. What's that about?
So, as expected, you're just siding with your mother and it's all my fault, huh?
What? You're trying to say my mom's been harassing you?
Enough. We've decided to divorce, so there's no need to fight about this here.
Wait, you're planning on divorcing me?
Yes. Did you think we weren't going to?
I mean, it's not like we don't get along.
I can't live with such a mother-in-law in the future. Plus, you're clearly a mama's boy and won't support me.
I'm not a mama's boy.
You're nothing but a mama's boy.
Really?
Your mother is clearly all about you, and you the same for her. Perfect for each other, right?
Hey, you're making fun, aren't you?
Wishing you happiness forever.
I got him to sign the divorce papers, and we went our separate ways. The house, which was in Tom's name and on a mortgage, became his. Just a month after our divorce, I got a message from Tom. He said he wanted to talk about something, including with his mother. Reluctantly, I agreed to meet.
Excuse me. What's going on here?
Why the sudden outburst?
Don't play dumb with me.
Yes,
We can't make ends meet with just Tom's earnings.
that figures.
What do you mean by that?
I've been paying living expenses from my income too.
His take-home pay is less than expected, and he doesn't even make $70,000 annually.
Mother-in-law, it seems you were mistaken.
About what?
The one with an annual income of $70,000 is me.
Oh, then what about Tom?
Before Tom changed his job, he had an annual salary of about $50,000, but it decreased significantly after he shifted.
I didn't know that.
It's not surprising you didn't know. Why would we specifically discuss that with you?
Still, his take-home pay is way too low.
That's because his salary is being deducted for his gambling debts.
What?
So, his take-home is very low, and I've been supplementing our expenses with my salary.
Why didn't you tell me this sooner?
No, I did. Remember when I mentioned we'd face financial difficulties? You just brushed it off saying it's none of your business.
Well, that is.
I just didn't mention it since you considered it none of your business. By the way, it seems he's gambling every day while on business trips. Tom has a gambling addiction, you know.
I managed to pay this month's gas, water, electricity, and other bills. But I can't from next month.
Is that so? That stuff.
It's stuff, so come back.
What are you talking about?
Please come back and remarry.
That's a bit too convenient for you.
If you come back, I promise not to interfere or say unnecessary things. I'll even apologize for everything. Please.
It's impossible now.
Then Tom, who had been silent, joined the conversation.
I didn't know about the money issues either.
I figured.
I thought we were managing just with my salary.
That's not possible.
I realize I was wrong to always side with my mother. Can we start over?
I've been relieved since breaking up with a gambling addict, so there's absolutely no chance of remarrying.
What's with that tone?
Besides, I can't be with a mama's boy either.
Don't say that.
Both of you seem to get along so well. Why not just support each other and carry on?
Please.
Are we done here? If we are, I'd like to head out since it's my precious day off and I have other things to do.
Please come back. If not, I'll have to start working.
Please do your best to work and support Tom. Thank you.
I ignored the two pleading for me to remarry and went home. Although I had kept their contact information in case of emergencies, I decided to block their numbers and delete them now. I requested a transfer to a store near my parents' house and began living in an apartment nearby. Tom's house was about a 2-hour drive away, and given that Tom isn't fond of my father, he likely wouldn't come to this area in the future. Half a year later, as support from my previous store, I was stationed for a day at a store near Tom's house. Out of curiosity, I passed by his house and was greeted by a surprising sight. The house was up for sale. They probably couldn't keep up with the payments. While working that day, I spotted none other than my former mother-in-law. She noticed me and approached.
I finally got to see you.
What are you doing here?
I thought I might run into you if I worked at this store.
Surprisingly, my former mother-in-law was working at the supermarket right next to the mobile shop where I work.
Are you working?
Isn't it obvious when you look?
Did you choose to work here because you thought you might see me?
Yes. I hoped to see you and urge you to come back.
You're still on about that. I have absolutely no intention of returning.
Don't say that. We couldn't afford the house anymore and had to put it up for sale.
Is that so?
Now we're barely managing in a small apartment, just the two of us.
Well, isn't it nice that you get to live with your beloved son?
Don't mock me. And Tom has started working part-time. So there are many days he doesn't come home, and we hardly ever get to talk.
I see. Sounds tough for Tom too.
I never intended to work again. Yet here I am in this situation.
It sounds tough for you too, Har, but please keep supporting Tom.
I can't handle it anymore. Please, won't you consider remarrying him?
I've said it before, you're so persistent. It's just not going to happen, haha.
Please, don't say that.
I need to get back to work, so I don't have time to entertain pointless conversations.
It's not pointless.
To me, it is quite pointless, haha. I wish you and Tom a lifetime of happiness together.
Wait a minute.
The two of them, having sold their house, seem to be living in a small apartment now. To my knowledge, they have about 2 more years to repay their gambling debts, so they'll probably live a tight budgeted life until then. I hope they can cooperate and overcome this together. As for me, I work cheerfully and enjoyably every day. Since the divorce, various aspects of my life have been progressing smoothly. Good things keep happening, and I'm grateful to be dating a wonderful man now. I truly hope to find happiness this time around.
My name is Emily. I'm a 62-year-old housewife. My husband, whom I had been with for many years, suddenly fell ill and passed away 2 years ago. Now, I manage to live modestly on the inheritance my husband left behind. I have 2 sons. Both of them are already married, but when Tom, my eldest son, was getting married, He suggested that we live together. I told him, I appreciate your concern, but I'm still fine on my own. I wouldn't want to get in the way of newlyweds. Tom said, I can't leave you alone to die a lonely death. I'm the eldest son. Let me take care of you. Don't think of it as a bother. So, we decided to live together. Tom's wife, Catherine, is still young. She's 23, which is 9 years younger than Tom. At first, I was worried if such a young girl could handle being a wife, but she was Tom's choice. I had no reason to oppose, so I accepted their marriage. When we were discussing living together, I asked Tom, is Catherine okay with living with me? Wouldn't a young lady dislike living with an old woman like me? Tom said, it's fine. Catherine is kind, she'll get along with you. Plus, having you around will help her with household chores. He was adamant about us living together. Having heard that, I found no reason to object. Indeed, considering my age, it might be too late if something were to happen. Living alone might not be as reassuring, so I gratefully accepted Tom's offer. After a while of living together, I once asked Catherine, could you please take the laundry out of the dryer? I'm heading out for grocery shopping. Until then, I hadn't asked her much, but that day I had some urgent tasks before shopping, so I had to ask. Catherine said, why do I have to do it? I'm busy right now. Why don't you do it before you leave? I noticed she was just playing a game on her smartphone. Until then, she hadn't helped with any house chores, but I had avoided mentioning it out of consideration for her. However, seeing her just lying down playing a game, I said a bit sternly, can't your game wait? Please help out a little. You're so annoying. Whoever is free should do the chores, right? You can take the laundry out before going shopping. So bothersome. She grumbled and glared at me before heading out to the utility room to get the laundry. I was stunned by her rude response, but thinking that further words might worsen her mood, I just left the house. From that day, Catherine started to harass me. Ignoring me became a regular thing whenever I tried to talk to her. I can't eat this. Hey, Tom, let's go out and eat, just the two of us. Catherine would say this when she didn't like the food I prepared and would go out to eat, leaving me behind. Think about Mom too. She went through the trouble of making this. Although Tom tried to be considerate of my feelings, whenever Catherine was in a bad mood, he would end up saying, sorry, Mom. We'll eat out today and just go along with Catherine's wishes. Catherine kept saying it's only natural for me to do all the housework as if I was entirely reliant on Tom. You know, you're not working, right, Emily? Isn't it embarrassing to rely on Tom for everything? Given your age, isn't it normal for you to do all the house chores? Although Catherine claims I don't work, she herself doesn't have a job either. However, she acts as if supporting Tom, who does work, makes her superior, even without a job of her own. I never mentioned to Catherine that I actually do have a job. I manage an apartment left by my late husband and have a small income from it. I've been contributing to the household expenses, so it's not like I'm completely dependent. Yet, in Catherine's eyes, if I'm not working outside, it equates to having no income. Catherine seemed to think that Tom was the one covering all the expenses. Can you clean a bit more quietly? It's so noisy. I was just using the vacuum cleaner as usual, but Catherine seemed to be on the phone with someone. Hello? Sorry about that. Yeah, it's Tom's mom. She's really noisy. You know. I wish she'd do her chores quietly. Being patient as I am, I was taken aback by her comments and told Tom about what had happened that day when he came home from work. I'm not saying I want her to do everything, but Catherine isn't helping at all with the chores. It's not just that, she yelled at me just for vacuuming. It's normal to share housework, and I'm willing to do my part. But I'm at my limit if I have to do everything on my own, especially when I get complaints. I'm sorry. I don't think Catherine meant any harm. Maybe she was just in a bad mood today. I'll ask her to help out more. Please overlook it for today. Still, I hoped that Tom would talk to Catherine, so I continued to watch the situation without saying anything for the next few days. Half a year has passed since then. Catherine's attitude hasn't changed at all, and she doesn't even show a hint of doing housework. I was completely exhausted from doing chores for 3 people and from constantly being considerate of Catherine. At that time, I unexpectedly received an invitation from my second son, John. "Mom, your birthday is coming up soon, right? Since Tom and Catherine will probably celebrate on the actual day, how about letting us celebrate for you today? Karen seems to have something she wants to give you. How about going out for a meal?" John and his wife live in an apartment about 30 minutes away from our place. We didn't often get the chance to meet, but Karen, John's wife, is very kind and gentle. She truly cherishes me. When John invited me, I joyfully replied, "I'm so happy. Of course, I'll come." That night, after preparing dinner for Tom and Catherine, I went out to dine with John and Karen. They booked my favorite restaurant and said it was for my birthday gift, presenting me with flowers and a bag. I was having such a good time after so long that I couldn't help but express my true feelings, saying, "This is so healing. I haven't felt this happy in a while." Hearing that, John asked with concern, "Did something happen with Tom?" When you say happy for the first time in a while, it makes me worry. Have you been going through some tough times recently? I didn't intend to complain, but I explained to him that Catherine doesn't help with the housework at all, so I do everything by myself. I also mentioned being told I'm too loud and hearing hurtful remarks from her. After exchanging glances with Karen, John said, "Look, if it's tough for you, you don't have to force yourself to live with Tom and Catherine. You can live comfortably with the stock, dividends and apartment rent income left by Dad, right? You're only living with Tom because he wanted to, even though you don't really need to rely on him. If Catherine is treating you like that, and Tom isn't helping, you should consider not living with them. If it's hard for you to bring it up, I can step in and talk about it. If you ever feel lonely living by yourself, we're here to live with you. I love you so much. And you don't have to be on your toes around us," Karen kindly offered. I was so overwhelmed with happiness that tears formed in my eyes. Responding to their kind words, I said, "Thank you. But I want to try a little longer. They are precious family members after all, aren't they? I still hope to come to an understanding with Catherine." Feeling the support around me, I decided in my heart to keep pushing forward. That day, after parting with John and Karen, I came home to find the bowls they had used left in the sink. With a sigh, I was about to clean them when I thought, it's become expected of me since I always do it. I'll leave them as is today and have the 2 of them clean up in the morning. And with that, I left the dishes and went to bed. The next morning, as I was preparing breakfast, Catherine woke up. I said to her, "Good morning, Catherine. I'll take care of breakfast. Could you wash the dishes you both used yesterday?" However, Catherine simply ignored my words. She went to the sofa and began to play with her smartphone. I couldn't help but raise my voice at Catherine's attitude and exclaimed, "It's basic courtesy to wash the dishes you've used." Catherine retorted, "How many times do I have to tell you? That's your job as the mother-in-law, right?" Ever heard of the saying, "He who does not work, neither shall he eat"? Since you eat every day, you should do the housework. Hearing our exchange, Tom quickly got up in a panic and asked, "What's going on so early in the morning?" "A fight." He looked puzzled as he peered into my face. I sighed and said to Tom, "All I did was ask Catherine to wash the dishes you two used yesterday." "I'm just pointing out the obvious." After hearing my reply, Tom said in an annoyed tone, "Really? So early in the morning over this?" He was about to go wash his face when I interrupted. I couldn't contain my frustration and shouted, "It's not just about this. Every single day, I take care of all the household chores, including both of your parts. Do you know how hard that is? The least you could do is wash the dishes you've used." Hearing me shout, something I rarely do, Tom quickly said in a panic, "I'm sorry. I'll wash them." Catherine stopped him and remarked, "Why? Why should Tom, who works outside, have to do such chores? You're indebted to Tom, so you should be the one doing it." She continued, "Such a burden with your pensioner life. Just leave this apartment." I reached my breaking point and said, "Why should I leave my own home? The lease is under my name, you know." I then turned to Tom and said, "Tom, you understand, right? Catherine seems to be misunderstanding something. It's you two who need to leave. I can't bear living together any longer." Catherine, looking taken aback, asked, "What do you mean? How can you, who doesn't work, afford to rent this place? Weren't you relying on Tom all this time?" I explained, "I'm the landlord of this apartment. I'm not renting it. The apartment itself is mine. Yes, I haven't worked outside. However, Tom's father left me stocks, this apartment, and land when he passed away. From managing these assets, I earn enough to live on my own. I've never financially depended on Tom. Since we started living together, I've been covering most of the utilities and food expenses." Catherine, in shock, turned to Tom and asked, "Does that mean we've been living almost without spending any of our own money?" Tom stayed silent, only nodding in response to Catherine's words. I added, "Tom might have wanted to show off in front of you, Catherine, but there's no way. He could cover all my living expenses and also afford to take you out for meals and shopping. His salary isn't that high." Realizing the gravity of the situation, Catherine's face turned pale. She quickly said, "I'm so sorry. I was unaware and spoke out of turn. Please forgive me. Moving forward, if our living together comes to an end, Catherine will not be able to live as she has been." She understood that and kept repeating "I'm sorry" in a panicked manner. I told them, "I won't say I won't forgive you. We are family after all. But living together is impossible. We'll end that arrangement. You two should rent a place and live by yourselves." Tom responded, "I worry about you, Mom. From now on, both Catherine and I will help with the household chores. I don't want to leave you alone because I'm concerned." I assured him, "I'll be fine. If you're that worried, I'll live with John and Karen." When we went out for dinner recently, they told me I could live with them if I felt anxious about living alone. I thought I could give it another try with you and Catherine, but I've realized it's not possible. I don't want to be a burden to John and Karen, but I'll ask them to stay close. Sensing my firm decision, Tom said, "I understand," and chose not to argue further. Catherine, however, exclaimed, "So, you're abandoning us? After all the care we've given you?" As if to suggest that I was the one at fault. I felt it was pointless to argue with her, so I said nothing further. Within a month, Tom and Catherine found a place and moved out. Due to the cost of rent, it seems they could only afford a very old and cramped apartment. Catherine, who hadn't worked before, apparently started a part-time job to support their living. Tom mentioned that every day she constantly complains about juggling household chores. With her part-time job, it seemed like the fights were never ending, and Tom appeared to be completely exhausted. "If Mom would forgive me, I'd want to live with you again," he often messaged. "But I'm done with that experience." After Tom and Catherine left, I started living with John and Karen after a while. I told John it's not necessary, but he said, "Both Karen and I find it more helpful living with Mom." Also, Karen really wants to live with Mom. She wants to learn the taste of Mom's home cooking, offering to live together. "You can speak up if there's something you dislike, okay? For household chores, we'll handle what we can," he said, ensuring that neither of us feels overly burdened. Together with Karen, I cook and spend time enjoying my hobbies, leading fulfilling days. I am truly happy now. I hope to continue living without ever ruining this happiness.
I never thought you'd be such a heartless woman. Are you sure about this? Do you want a divorce? It seems he sees divorce as his trump card. I don't want a man who values only his parents and neglects his wife either. Fine, let's get a divorce. And just so you know, I own this house, so you can get out. What? John began to panic because of my unexpected behavior. But I've decided not to sacrifice myself for people like this anymore. My name is Emily, and I'm 30 years old. I've been married to John for a year and a half. Since our marriage, we've been on 3 family trips with John's parents. I've also traveled with my sister-in-law, called Lisa, and her child. The trips are fine, but the problem is with the payment. Hey, I paid for everyone's trip when booking. When will you, your dad, and Mom pay me back? I'll pay you back eventually. Just front it for now. John always leaves the trip bookings and payments to me, and still hasn't paid me back. Neither have his parents. In addition to the unpaid amounts, I have not been able to do any sightseeing at all on the trips. That's another big issue. Start unpacking now and buy the things on this list. We'll go sightseeing first. Okay. Yes, my mother-in-law dumps all the tedious tasks of the trip on me. And of course, neither John nor my father-in-law help me. But I also want to do some sightseeing. I hurriedly finished the tasks that were assigned to me and was about to head out for sightseeing when I'm already tired. Let's go back to the hotel. During these trips, I was treated like a servant for John and his parents. So I didn't even get the option to go sightseeing. When I went on a trip with Lisa and her child, I was treated like a servant plus babysitter. I hate this! Lisa's child, who is extremely picky and tantrum prone, threw a plate at me because he found something he doesn't like. As a result, my clothes and belongings got messy. Seeing such a disaster, sister-in-law, what are you doing? Take care of him properly. Lisa, ignoring her child's bad behavior, blamed everything on me. In the end, I couldn't even eat my meal and spent the entire trip looking after Lisa's child. 4 trips in just a year and a half. Paying for everything and being treated like a servant. I'm not paying to get exhausted. So I've decided not to go on any trips in the future. Emily, how about going on a trip during the upcoming long vacation? As the long vacation approached, John, predictably, suggested a trip. However, I'm fully prepared this time. I've scheduled work for almost the entire vacation. I have to work, so I'll pass. You all go on without me. Really? Alright. John reluctantly agreed. and he left for the trip on the first day of the long vacation a few days later. As I had anticipated, this trip seems to have been a disaster. When John returned home, the first thing he did was complain about Lisa. There was no one to pay the bills when I wasn't around and no one to take care of Lisa's child. Naturally, his mother Lisa should take care of him, but she could not resist. Why don't you babysit for her? Me? Why? He's not my son. Have you been thinking like this every time we travel? I never want to be treated as a babysitter again. John seemed hurt by what I said and sulkily went into the bedroom. When John fell asleep early, I received a call from my mother-in-law. This trip was tough because Lisa kept complaining. You must come next time. No, I won't. Huh? Why not? She doesn't seem to understand why I refused. Maybe it's best to spell it out clearly. I also don't like what Lisa dislikes. If you're going to impose unpleasant tasks on me, I won't go. But trips are fun, right? Come with us next time. I won't. After going back and forth with my mother-in-law trying to persuade me, she eventually gave up and ended the call. Feeling relieved from the torturous trip, I didn't realize at the time that the situation would change dramatically the next day. Hey, what did you tell my mom? After returning from work, John burst into the room, yelling. He must have heard about the call from his mother. It's our duty to take our elderly parents on a trip and make them happy. Why did you say you won't go? Why do I have to be treated like a servant by you all? I get even more exhausted than my job. Just bear with it. Since they're enjoying it, I'll divorce you. I can't tolerate being burdened while he enjoys with his parents. Frustrated, we had a heated argument. After a while, John sighed. I never thought you were such a heartless woman. Is this okay with you? We're getting a divorce. It seems he sees divorce as his trump card. I don't want a man who values only his parents and neglects his wife either. Fine, let's get a divorce. Remember, I own this house, so leave. What? Thinking the word divorce would make me apologize? John was taken aback. I packed John's valuables into a bag, handed it to him, and showed him out the door. All the while, he kept shouting, We're divorcing, and you'll regret this. But I didn't care. The next day, I received an immediate call from my mother-in-law after she heard about what happened. Don't you have any sense of responsibility as a wife? How dare you throw out the backbone of the family? Well, I won't be his wife anymore. I'll file for divorce soon. Handling my mother-in-law now felt easier. However, if you're getting divorced, pay up the division of assets. You should pay for our recent trip in full. The problem is these two who are so greedy about money. I didn't cheat on anyone. Since it was John who brought up the divorce, I think he should pay the division of assets. I received a bill for $4,700 for the trip from Lisa, but the amount seems off. It's too much. Until now, I've paid a total of $2,900 for trips. There's no way a single trip could cost $4,700. Furious at their attempt to milk more money from me at this point, I withdrew all the trip expenses from the joint bank account I had with John. I believe the balance was almost zero. A month after kicking out John, I've been receiving emails almost daily like, Are you sure about the divorce? And you're not going to divorce me, right? I got tired of replying, so I registered, We're divorcing, you're paying the division of assets as a template and send it back each time. Although it's comfortable being alone, it's annoying getting daily messages from my mother-in-law, John, and Lisa I spent 2 weeks finding a competent lawyer to settle the situation. Hiring a lawyer made me realize John's abnormalities, which I wasn't aware of. 3 months after hiring the lawyer, the divorce was finally finalized. Due to John's nonsensical remarks, the proceedings took this long. If we're divorcing, I'll expect you to pay the division of assets. You're the one who wants the divorce, so you should pay. Then we don't divorce, and please tell my wife to meet all my parents' conditions. Your wife has rejected that. Then I'll divorce, and she should pay the assets. The conversation apparently went like this, to the point where even the lawyer was exasperated. While the conversation was not progressing in such a state, an event occurred that made me doubt his character. Hey, this one is broken, so replace it with a new one. Wait, this is my tablet? While discussing the divorce in a cafe with 3 of us, as we were leaving, he handed the tablet to me, saying that tablet was something I had been searching for all along. I had been searching for it since it disappeared, and I even asked John about it. He claimed not to know when I asked, but he turned out to be the very thief. Why do you have my tablet? And what do you mean it's broken? I'm the one who used it, so it's mine, right? But it's broken and I'm in trouble, so bring me a new one. I was utterly speechless. Seeing my dismay, the lawyer confronted John for me. Do you realize what you just said? You're aware of what you did, right? He genuinely doesn't understand what he did wrong. Despite being confronted by the lawyer, he seemed to have an attitude of not understanding the issue. Wow, stealing someone's stuff and asking for a new one? Unbelievable. At that moment, the waitress by our side blurted out, Perhaps that comment from a completely unrelated person finally made him realize that what he did was indeed theft, a genuine crime. He left the cafe in a hurry, and that night he informed the lawyer he'd divorce. I was always told by my family that everything was Emily's fault, so I assumed I could use anything of hers. He seemingly confided this to the lawyer during the call. My in-laws blaming me for everything is strange, but I think it's also bad for one who's brainwashed. Anyway, the divorce was finalized. Though it was a short period, after a dense 3 months, I finally became free. A month after the divorce, it seems my ex-husband's family planned another trip. It was supposed to be my ex-husband, his parents, Lisa, and her child, a group of 5 in total. On the day of the trip, they excitedly headed to the station only to discover that no one had booked the trip. Blame was quickly passed around, but since they didn't have reservations, they decided to eat out instead. After the meal, everyone got up and seemed to head to pay, but everyone just walked past the counter. A panicked waiter confronted them, but no one attempted to pay, and they apparently got caught trying to dine and dash. It's no surprise the whole family didn't act. After all, I used to handle everything for them. The fact that they couldn't go on their trip or got caught trying to skip out on the bill honestly didn't concern me. Yet, the reason I knew all this in detail was, hey, are you listening? No, I'm not. Why not? You used to listen to all my stories. Yes, because John would call almost every day and complain about trivial things. Things were so much better when Emily was around. Without you, our family just doesn't function properly. I really don't understand why we divorced. Once he finished complaining about his family, he'd always mentioned regretting our divorce. I got so annoyed that I'd hang up without listening. He persistently kept calling, so I contacted my lawyer, who then apparently gave John some guidance. I thought this would finally sever our ties, but I was wrong. 4 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a call from my lawyer telling me that John was engaged. I bet it was his mother desperately looking for his next wife, trying to get another servant like I used to be. I simply responded with, okay, to my lawyer and tried to forget about him and his family. 2 more months later, John contacted me at my company email address. My fiancée called off the engagement. She said, you know the reason why. What does that mean? Were you and my fiancé conspiring against me? I couldn't grasp the meaning immediately. I didn't know the fiancé, and if I did, I'd have heard about it. What are you talking about? Explain in detail. When she broke off the engagement, she said she understood why my previous wife left me. She also said to reflect on the past reasons. That's when it clicked. Facing the unchanged behavior of John's family, the fiancé probably realized why he got divorced in the first place. She had advised him to reflect on the reasons for his past divorce, but for some reason, John interpreted it as if I knew the reason for the broken engagement. Why did she break the engagement? What was the reason? It's because of you and your parents treating her like a servant, you idiot. I would have told them over the phone, but I don't care anymore. Text is just fine. After sending a rather harsh message, I blocked his email. I later asked my lawyer to get a restraining order and demand division of assets. 3 months have passed since then. I haven't heard from John or his parents. I even got the division of assets. If he violates the restraining order, he'll be arrested. Considering he was once caught for dining and dashing, he'd probably want to avoid that. And so, I regained my peaceful life. Every day is now comfortable without being unfairly treated by anyone. I'm wary of marriage, but I hope to meet someone kind who would cherish me and protect me from in-laws.
To be honest, can you leave this house? Huh? I'm telling. A free-riding wife who doesn't contribute financially to leave. The real nuisance in this house is you, after all. So, you want a divorce? Well, yes. I can't believe it. I didn't realize my husband was such an idiot. Okay. As I said that, my sister-in-law jumped for joy. Yay! Now we'll have more money to spend. My name is Michelle, a 34-year-old remote worker. I've been married to Jake for 5 years. I met him through work, and he was very aggressive in his approach, leading us to start dating. A year later, we got married. I became a full-time housewife after our marriage. It was because Jake wanted me to stay home. I wanted to continue working for a bit longer, but Jake insisted strongly, so I quit. However, about 2 years into our marriage, it seems that Jake made a major mistake at his company and had his pay cut. Seemingly realizing the gravity of the situation, he said, "Michelle, could you work part-time or something?" "Okay," I replied, looking for a job that wouldn't interfere with housework. Then I discovered a service connecting clients and freelancers, allowing them to offer and accept jobs. It's common now, but it wasn't so well known back then. Having previously worked as an engineer, I hoped to find web development tasks and indeed found plenty. The pay ranged from $100 to $120 for simple tasks. So I started it casually, planning to do about one job per week. I began lightly and enjoyed getting back to work after a long hiatus, and it served as a great break from house chores. Even working at a relaxed pace, I managed to earn $600 to $800 a month, compensating for Jake's pay cut without impacting our household. That's a lifesaver. I never imagined you'd find such a job. Being appreciated by Jake felt great. I also received compliments from clients, which made me feel valued. Over time, my track record grew, and I started receiving higher paying jobs. A year into my freelancing, I was making $2,000 a month for the same amount of effort. Our life stabilized, and we were able to save quite a bit. Seeing our savings grow improved our mood, and our marital relationship remained strong. Work became fun, and I took on a bit more. My income shot up surprisingly fast, but I shouldn't get ahead of myself. If we have children in the future or face a major illness that prevents us from working, we'll need money. So I maintained our living standard and focused on saving. It had been a while since we had spent peaceful everyday life, but one day my husband said he had something to discuss and called me into the living room. "What's up? Did something happen?" Well, he looked serious. Did he make a mistake at work again? Maybe another pay cut? "I want us to live with my parents." What? My parents are getting old and I'm getting worried. My dad just recently retired too. Being the eldest son, I want to do my duty for them. I see. I was really torn. It's not like I had a bad relationship with my in-laws, but we weren't extremely close either. We would see each other during the festivals or New Year's, a relationship that felt just right. Living together would bring us closer, and I couldn't really imagine how that would turn out. When I was confused, he asked for more. "Look, we don't have kids yet, right? My parents are quite lonely, especially not being able to see their grandchildren. We haven't been able to give them that joy. At the very least, living with them and being mental support is essential, I think." He had a point. We had been married for 5 years and still didn't have children. We thought it would naturally happen, but it didn't. And lately, I've been feeling a bit anxious. My sister-in-law and her husband have been married for 3 years and also don't have kids. So my in-laws might genuinely feel lonely. Alright, let's live together. I was swayed by his passionate persuasion and agreed. However, I would later realize that this was the biggest mistake of my life. "Jake, Michelle, it's so good of you to come. Come on in. Thank you for having us." The in-laws greeted us warmly. "I bought some snacks. Let's all eat together." We sat in the living room enjoying snacks and having a light conversation. Thank you so much for agreeing to live with us, Michelle. No problem at all. As you get older, there are many things to worry about. It's a big help. I felt relieved thinking that living with my in-laws might not be an issue, given their warm treatment towards me. However, just then, the sound of the front door opening caught me off guard. I'm home. Welcome back, Jessica. Oh, Jackie's here? What are you talking about? Didn't I tell you we'd be living together starting today? Alright, haha. Ooh, I want some of those snacks. Wait, why is Jessica here? Plus, the way she said I'm home and the conversation make it sound like she lives here. I discreetly tugged at my husband's sleeve and whispered, "What's going on?" He looked puzzled. Michelle, why are you two whispering? Oh, nothing. When did Jessica move back home? Huh, Jake, didn't you tell her? Ah, I see. I might have forgot to mention it to Michelle. Jessica moved back home 3 months ago after her divorce. You kept quiet about such an important matter? If Jessica's here, isn't there no need for us to live together? By the way, Dad, I scratched the car again. What? Again? He rushed outside to inspect the car, which it seems Jessica had been driving. Apparently, my sister-in-law was borrowing and driving until a while ago. Oh no, another repair. He looked exasperated. At the time, I simply sympathized with the recurring car repairs. But more importantly, there's the issue with Jessica. That night in the bedroom, I confronted my husband. Why didn't you tell me Jessica had divorced and moved back home? Sorry, I forgot to mention it. You don't just forget something like that. It's fine, isn't it? It's more lively with Jessica around. That's not the point. What's your problem then? I was so upset that I buried my face in the blanket. Soon, we both drifted off to sleep. The next morning, while heading out to dispose of the trash, I was shocked to see the family car. It was Mercedes-Benz. That explains their reactions to the scratches Jessica made. They seemed wealthier than I thought, given the modest size of their house. I think it's a general economic level. I wondered if they bought it just for show. This was just the tip of the iceberg. Michelle, would you mind handling the household finances? What? I'm not good with that kind of thing. Is it okay? Sure. Fortunately, the family wasn't too strict about household chores, and I had been managing my work well. However, the next month, when I reviewed the expenditures, I was stunned. They were spending way beyond their means. The mother-in-law frequently bought expensive clothes and went out for fancy lunches. The father-in-law was spending a lot on his golf hobby. And then there was Jessica. She never works but buys loads of manga, games, and, like my mother-in-law, expensive clothes, and goes out all the time. It seems they are overspending because my father-in-law's retirement fund is quite substantial. We, my husband and I, have vowed to continue our modest lifestyle using them as cautionary example. I did warn my mother-in-law as well. Don't you think you ran out of my father-in-law's retirement fund soon with the way you're spending? She just laughed and said, "That's not going to happen," and brushed off my concern. But as expected, the retirement fund was exhausted in about half a year, and the in-laws were in panic. And to top it off, they blamed me who managed our household budget. It's because you don't save properly. No, it's definitely because of how you spend money. What should we do now? We have the car inspection coming up too. My in-laws were devastated. Well, they brought it upon themselves, so I don't feel sorry. Then my husband said something unbelievable. I'll contribute more to the house. It'll be fine. What? What is he talking about? Their faces lit up immediately. Is that okay, Jake? Yeah, let me do my duty as a son. We're so glad you turned out to be such a good boy. Our brother is so reliable compared to our unreliable daughter-in-law. Later, when we were alone in our room, I confronted my husband. Why did you say that? Because I am the main breadwinner in this house. I should be the one to say it. That's not the point. How are we going to manage the money? Huh? What are you talking about? We have lots of savings, don't we? What? The amount in our joint account is quite substantial, right? When did my salary increase? I wasn't aware. Wait, that's my earnings. What are you talking about? You're just earning a part-time wage, aren't you? No way, I'm earning way more than that now. Just don't lie. Anyway, I'll give them about $4,000 every month. Wait, that's our emergency savings. They're in need. What bigger emergency can there be? Despite my protest, my husband didn't listen and truly began giving them $4,000 from our joint account every month. To preserve our savings, I put $4,000 into the joint account every month, meaning I was essentially giving the in-laws that money. After about 3 months of this, an unexpected incident occurred. When I returned from the supermarket, my in-laws were waiting for me with stern faces. What's going on with all of you here? Please sit down. I took a seat as instructed. To put it bluntly, can you leave this house? What? Your presence just increases the expenses. What are you talking about? A freeloading daughter-in-law who doesn't contribute to the house should leave. Even my in-laws seemed uncomfortable. We appreciate you doing the household chores, but when we think about the living expenses for you, I'm not living luxuriously at all, and I am contributing to the household finances. That's just pocket change, isn't it? Are you on their side too? I'm just stating the facts. The real burden on this household is you. So you're saying you want a divorce? Well, yes. I can't believe this. How could my husband be so thoughtless? Okay, but can you give me some time? Even if I were to leave, I'd need to find a room, pack my belongings, and so on. Well, I guess 5 days should be enough, right? We'll be on vacation during that time, so please leave. Okay. Also, how about no division of assets? What? It's not fair that I have to give you money that I've earned, right? True, it's indeed unfair. Alright, no division of assets then. When I said that, my sister-in-law jumped for joy. Yay, now I'll have more money to spend. I'm looking forward to the trip. It seemed that my husband had already prepared the divorce papers and I was made to sign them on the spot. Since you guys are going on the trip, I'll cover the expenses. Oh really? That helps. The next day, the in-laws went on their vacation. My husband had apparently taken paid leave in advance for the trip. It seems he had planned to kick me out for quite some time. I wasn't sad. On the contrary, I was delighted to get away from those foolish in-laws. And to voluntarily say no division of assets? My husband is such an idiot. I quickly withdrew all the money I had deposited from my earnings from our joint account. I rented an apartment near my parents' house and moved immediately. 5 days later, I received a call from my ex-husband, who was probably back from the trip. Hello? Hey, you stole the money from our joint account, didn't you? What? Stole? Can you not say such things? Stop messing around. The passbook shows it's empty. Well, of course, I've been depositing my earnings into that account. Huh? Stop lying. That money was from my earnings. Why don't you check your own pay slips? Your salary hasn't changed since you got a pay cut. What? If it helps, I'll show you my income statement for this month. I switched it to a video call and showed him the income statement. Wow, $6,000? I earn this much every month, so the one who was putting money in the joint account was me. There's no way your salary alone could hand over $4,000 to your mother and the rest every month, right? I don't believe it. Hey, Michelle, can we reconsider the divorce? What? I finally realized you are the most important to me. You have the guts to say that now. It's just like declaring you only saw me as a cash cow. No, it's not like that. Anyway, the divorce papers are already submitted, so we're strangers now. Do your best to handle your sister's excessive spending, though I doubt you can. With that, I hang up the call. I immediately blocked his number. Later, I heard that my ex-in-laws were in chaos. Unable to pay their bills, they had to sell luxury goods and even the father-in-law's Mercedes to get by. But their spending habits didn't change, and they eventually had to sell their ancestral home. My ex-husband sent me emails asking for reconciliation and informing me about the situation, but I ignored them all. I also blocked him on X to cut off all contact. Meanwhile, I've been living a peaceful and comfortable life in my apartment. My savings are growing and I'm thinking of starting to invest soon.
Strangers don't need to come to the funeral. Please leave the rest to us. Thank you for the care given so far.
My mother-in-law said this and burst into laughter. John and I were utterly flabbergasted by my mother-in-law. Understood. We will never associate it with you again. The next day, there were more than 100 missed calls from my mother-in-law on both John's and my phones, as a result of ignoring her permanently. The relatives from my in-laws' house met a miserable fate. My name is Emily, a 32-year-old housewife. I have been married to John for 5 years. We were ordinarily colleagues working in the same place, but we naturally became closer and started dating, leading to our marriage. At work, he has a reliable and calm demeanor, but when we meet in private, he has a childlike innocence. I was increasingly drawn to this gap. About a year into our relationship, he proposed and we got married. Even though we have been married for 5 years now and are a very close couple, it's not like we don't have concerns or worries. It's about John's family. His family structure is a bit complicated. John has a younger sister and brother, but they are children from his stepmother, so they are not blood related. John is a child from his stepfather, and both of them had children when they were married. The stepfather lost John's biological mother due to illness, and it seemed the stepmother divorced her first husband because of his affair. The stepmother then started working part-time in the office at the stepfather's company, and that's how they met. At first, they were simple co-workers, but at the company drinking party, they talked for the first time and felt a kinship when they found out they were both single parents. After that, they began consulting each other about parenting and started taking their children to the park to play on their days off. The children quickly became friends, and the relationship between my stepfather and stepmother grew closer, leading to their decision to remarry. Personally, I have no particular opinions about remarriages involving children. There are plenty of relationships bound by strong ties, even if they're not connected by blood. However, what bothers me are the attitudes and personalities of my mother-in-law, stepsister, and stepbrother. This became evident the first time I went with my husband to greet them formally regarding our marriage. Which university did you graduate from, Emily? I graduated from blah blah university.
Oh my, it's purely third rate, isn't it?
Excuse me?
Our Tom graduated from blah blah university, a renowned private institution. Catherine realized her talents early on, went to a vocational school, and is now thriving as a beautician.
I see.
I heard you work at the same place as John. I had a slight hope. But it seems you really don't have much of a background, do you?
My mother-in-law said such things despite it being our first meeting. The stepsister and stepbrother also echoed her sentiments.
It'd be pitiful if Mom told the truth, right?
Exactly. Reality can be cruel sometimes.
It's a miracle that our big bro even managed to get married. Let's just sincerely congratulate him.
Although Tom and Catherine seemed to be offering a lifeline, their tone was belittling towards my husband and me. The stepfather warned the three of them, and the situation was diffused. However, from our first meeting, I quickly took a disliking to all three. After our formal marriage greeting, John kept apologizing to me repeatedly. I hadn't asked much about it before our marriage, but it seems John had experienced various unpleasant things from his stepmother and step-siblings. When his parents were married, John was 8 years old, Catherine was 6, and Tom was 5. It appeared that the stepmother only favored her biological children. The stepfather often had a busy work schedule and frequently went on business trips. During his absence, the stepmother apparently treated John coldly.
John, give all that fried chicken to Tom and Catherine. The snacks in the fridge are theirs too.
It seems my mother-in-law would consistently ostracize John while favoring Tom and Catherine by buying them various things. As a result, even as a child, John felt profound sadness. He understood that his father had a challenging job, which made it difficult for him to voice his feelings. Eventually, John refrained from asking for anything and aimed to be as unnoticeable as possible at home. Hearing this, I felt an overwhelming sadness. A surge of anger rose in me towards my mother-in-law. Normally, when considering remarriage, especially when both parties have children, one would expect to be prepared to love the other's child as their own. Yet, not only did she solely show love to her biological children, but she also treated John terribly, which is unfathomable. The more I heard about John's childhood, the more I grew to despise the existence of my mother-in-law. And my mother-in-law would continually pick fights with both me and John. This happened particularly during our wedding preparations. Despite John's repeated refusals, for some reason, both my mother-in-law and Catherine joined us in dress shopping. The two of them criticized every dress I picked out relentlessly. "That's so lame! You really have no sense of style, do you? If it were me, I'd pick this one. Just like Catherine, so fashionable. When Catherine gets married, she'll undoubtedly have the most stylish wedding of all." Well, that's probably true. My mother-in-law and Catherine were amusing themselves, and they were genuinely intrusive. No matter how much John cautioned them, they were so loud that even the store staff seemed a bit troubled. Moreover, when choosing dishes at the wedding venue, even Tom joined in, eating as he pleased. And the cost was put on us, so they ended up eating delicious food for free while complaining. At our wits' end, John and I pretended to listen to my mother-in-law while secretly planning our ideal wedding. On the wedding day, we held the ceremony according to the plan we had secretly made. My mother-in-law and her family looked shocked and angry, but our relatives praised the wedding, preventing them from blaming us. Seeing my disgruntled mother-in-law, both John and I felt like saying, "Serves you right." There's no way we'd just obey my mother-in-law and her clan. After the wedding, as expected, they yelled at us, but the father-in-law shouted, "Enough!" and they quieted down. When John was a child, my father-in-law was so busy he didn't notice my mother-in-law's favoritism. But as he got less busy, he seemed to have noticed it. Since then, he's tried to care for John as much as possible. So it seems my father-in-law is aware of my mother-in-law's unreasonable behavior. "I truly apologize for the trouble they've caused you. After the wedding, I'll make sure they don't bother you at all." The father-in-law apologized to us in that manner. And after the wedding, he truly took care to ensure that we didn't interact with my mother-in-law and her clan. Even during family gatherings, if my mother-in-law or Catherine ever tried to meddle with us, he will intervene immediately. Thanks to that, my husband and I hardly had any interactions with them. 5 peaceful years have passed since then. But recently, a situation arose that forced us to engage with my mother-in-law and her family again. It was due to the father-in-law injuring his legs and needing care. Out of the blue, they contacted us, demanding, "You need to take care of him." We decided to go to their house to discuss the situation. "What are you doing here?" "Well, we can't just agree when you suddenly tell us to provide care, can we?" "Huh. He's your father, isn't he? It's common sense for a son like you to take care of him." My mother-in-law insisted that it's our duty to provide care in that manner. Indeed, my husband is the eldest son of this household, and he might have a duty to care for his father. But doesn't that also apply to you as his spouse? Having lived supported by the father-in-law's income as a full-time housewife, I believe it's also appropriate for you, who lives with him, to take care of him as a way of repaying his kindness. Upon hearing this, my mother-in-law glared at me fiercely.
Outsiders should keep quiet.
Outsider? Exactly. Aren't you also a full-time housewife relying on the income of that man over there?
Exactly. And unlike Mom, you're not even raising children. What a carefree housewife. We don't need someone like that meddling in our issues.
My sister-in-law and brother-in-law joined in to berate me. I was infuriated, but I knew that reacting to every comment would get us nowhere. Neither my husband nor I were against caring for the father-in-law. What we hated was being forced into the role unilaterally by my mother-in-law and her clan. You can say whatever you want about me. However, I'm disappointed to see that you show no gratitude towards the father-in-law.
I feel the exact same way. Who paid for your tuition? Who bought the toys, games, clothes, and various other things you wanted? Wasn't it all Dad? Aren't you ashamed to repay kindness with ingratitude? We can't entrust Dad's care to people like you. We will take care of that.
When my husband said this, it seemed my mother-in-law and the rest only heard what they wanted to hear.
You should have said that from the start. Now, quickly take that man with you.
Thus, we began living with and caring for my father-in-law.
I'm truly sorry, both of you. They stubbornly refused to care for me. Dad, don't worry about it.
Exactly. If we heard that the in-laws were taking care of you, both John and I would be incredibly worried.
Amy is right. You might end up worsening your condition with them.
I'm a full-time housewife and always at home, so don't hesitate to consult with me about anything.
Thank you. Truly, thank you.
The father-in-law tearfully expressed his gratitude to us. From then on, my husband and I took care of the father-in-law together. I handled it during the daytime on weekdays, while my husband took over during the nights. On our days off, we cooperated and cared for him together. The father-in-law always seemed much more at peace than when he was at his own home, and he always showed us a bright smile. Seeing him like this, both my husband and I felt relieved. Apparently, my mother-in-law started neglecting household chores at some point, often just leaving cup noodles or discounted convenience store meals for him when he returned from work. Moreover, it seems the sister-in-law and brother-in-law never left the house and frequently complained to the father-in-law as they pleased. Once Dad retires, will he be at home all the time? I can't stand that.
Normally, one would find a job somewhere out of consideration for their family, right?
They treated the father-in-law like an unwanted presence, making him feel uncomfortable in his own home. Hearing this, both my husband and I felt deeply saddened. We decided to shower him with all the love and affection he was denied by the in-laws. The father-in-law would share stories from his working days, his student years, and more. Every tale was captivating, and even while caregiving, I never felt burdened because he always had such enjoyable stories to tell. In the blink of an eye, 2 years passed. My husband and I continued to spend joyous days with the father-in-law. However, recently his health began to deteriorate rapidly, and he had to be hospitalized. We visited him daily, but one day, the in-laws unexpectedly showed up in his room.
Mom, what brought you all here? I have no business with you.
Saying that, my mother-in-law began speaking to the bedridden father-in-law.
Dear, we've run out of money. Please transfer some more. Mom, what are you saying? Don't be so loud. When your father moved to your house, he transferred $33,000 to us as living expenses for 2 years. Now that it's gone, I've come to ask for more. Next time, maybe for 5 years, transfer about $81,000 all at once. Stop it. Dad is suffering from illness right now. This is an hospital room. Don't stress him out like this. That's why I'm telling you to be quiet. This is a matter between us and your father. Outsiders shouldn't interfere. Outsiders?
My mother-in-law's terrible attitude left us completely dumbfounded. My father-in-law said to my mother-in-law, "I understand. I'll transfer the money. So please go home today."
It's a promise, okay? Make sure to transfer it.
Saying that, my mother-in-law left immediately. She didn't seem to care about the father-in-law at all and was only interested in money. My husband and I were shocked to find out that the father-in-law had been sending money like that.
Dad, why do you go so far from Mom? Honestly, she doesn't care about you at all, does she?
When my husband said that, the father-in-law revealed the surprising truth to us.
That was my severance paid to her, like a property settlement. I have already divorced that woman. What?
We were shocked by the revelation.
What do you mean? A long time ago, she threatened me with a pre-filled divorce form. I kept it all this time. When I moved to John's house, I submitted the divorce papers. So, despite what I said earlier, I won't transfer any more money. I asked the hospital to deny them visitation rights if they come here.
My husband and I felt relieved after hearing the father-in-law's story. After that, we visited him at the hospital with a calm mind. A few months later, the father-in-law passed away peacefully. We were prepared as his health had been deteriorating rapidly, and he was already 70 years old, so his time was probably near. I'm truly glad we were there to witness his final moments. Then, as my husband and I were preparing to the funeral, he suddenly received a call from my mother-in-law.
I heard about it. He's finally dead, isn't he? Mom, what do you mean by finally? What else can you expect from a man who didn't get money and even denied visitation rights? Why did you even call? I wanted to say something about a funeral. I'd like you guys not to attend. What? Strangers shouldn't come to the funeral. Just leave everything to us. I will duly perform my roles as his wife, and the inheritance belongs to us. Thanks for taking care of him all this time.
My mother-in-law laughed loudly. I was thoroughly disgusted with her. My husband was trembling with anger. I responded to my mother-in-law on behalf of my husband, since the call was on speaker. Understood. We will never associate it with you all again.
Oh, you're still there? You've done so much caregiving and got nothing in return. What a loss!
My mother-in-law mocked us. I ended the call without replying.
That woman. No, my mother is truly hopeless.
True. But she's a complete stranger to us, so it doesn't matter. We had a deep and meaningful relationship with your father. Let's leave the funeral to those greedy folks.
Right. They'll proudly act as the chief mourners without knowing they're making fools of themselves. That way, there won't be any issues at the funeral, and the relatives can probably send my father off.
We decided to fast-track a certain plan and not attend the funeral. The next day, over 100 malicious calls from my mother-in-law had come to our smartphones.
Such a large number of calls. Yeah, she must have realized the truth. But it seems the funeral went off without a hitch, just as we planned.
Exactly. The incessant calls from my mother-in-law continued. By permanently ignoring them, those from the in-laws' home met a tragic end. About a week later, we asked the relatives about the in-laws.
It seems they had a really tough time.
They couldn't get the inheritance. They lost their house and had nowhere to live. They went around asking all the relatives if they could stay with them.
I see.
But having heard various things from John and the rest, not a single one of us helped them out. My mother-in-law and her family believed they would receive an inheritance. However, after the funeral, they were shocked when a lawyer informed them of the father-in-law's will. The contents of the will bequeathed $6 million and the family home entirely to his biological son, my husband. Unable to accept this, my mother-in-law protested to the lawyer. The lawyer then explained that she and the father-in-law were already divorced, meaning she had no right to the inheritance. Additionally, since the father-in-law had not legally adopted the brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they had no inheritance rights either. Lastly, the lawyer delivered the father-in-law's message to them. Your husband once said he regretted ever becoming family with you all. It seems to be the final blow. Unable to get the money she was counting on, my mother-in-law reportedly collapsed pale-faced at the funeral venue. That's why she called us repeatedly the next day. However, we ignored the calls and have since moved. My mother-in-law and her family no longer have any way to contact us. Rumor has it that, counting on the inheritance, both the sister-in-law and brother-in-law have quit their jobs. Now, all of them are likely unemployed and probably struggling to even rent a room. Well, it's none of our business anymore. Meanwhile, my husband and I are living happily in our new home, enjoying our